I don't even know how to start this, so I'll just say it. My wife cheated on me, and when I confronted her, she said it was my fault. Her words still ring in my head. I wake up at night and hear them like a broken record. It's your fault I had to look elsewhere. But let me back up. Melissa and I have been married for 5 years. She's 30. I'm 32. No kids yet, though we always talked about it. On the surface, everything was fine. At least, that's what I thought. We both worked steady jobs, had a nice house, and spent weekends binge-watching TV or seeing friends. You know, normal married stuff. Then, about 4 months ago, things started to feel off. Melissa became distant. I didn't notice it right away. It was little things at first, like how she stopped cuddling on the couch with me at night, or started taking her phone with her everywhere. Bathroom trips, the shower, even to the basement to do laundry. I'd ask what she was doing, and she'd laugh it off with a, "Just scrolling, babe." I wanted to believe her. Then she started coming home late. Melissa works in marketing, so sometimes she has long days. But this was different. She'd say she was in last-minute meetings, or catching up on projects at the office. Once, she came home smelling like perfume. Not hers, not mine, and brushed me off when I asked. Oh, must have been from someone at the office. Relax, Adam. But I couldn't relax. Not when she started wearing makeup to work every day, dressing nicer than she ever had before. Don't get me wrong, my wife is beautiful, but Melissa's always been more casual. Suddenly, it was pencil skirts, heels, and perfume. I asked her once, jokingly, "Who are you trying to impress?" She smiled, but her tone was sharp. "Myself, Adam. Maybe you should try it sometime." I laughed it off, but inside, it stung. Was she serious? Was I letting myself go? I worked hard, hit the gym a few times a week, and made decent money. I tried to be a good husband. Sure, maybe I played video games more than she liked or forgot to say something nice now and then, but I never thought that made me a bad partner. Then came the night everything changed. It was a Friday. I was on the couch, half asleep, when Melissa's phone lit up on the coffee table. She must have forgotten to grab it before heading to the kitchen. I didn't mean to snoop. I swear I didn't. But the screen lit up, and I saw the message. "Can't wait to see you again, Red Heart." My stomach dropped. The name on the screen was Linda from HR. I froze. Linda from HR? That didn't make sense. Melissa always complained about her HR team being stuffy and boring. Why would Linda text her that? I grabbed the phone. My hands were shaking. Melissa was still in the kitchen, humming like everything was fine. I unlocked her phone. She never changed the passcode. The messages were all there. "I loved seeing you yesterday. You looked amazing. I'll try to get away for lunch next week. Same spot? You make me feel alive. I haven't felt that in years." The messages made my chest tighten, like someone was pressing a cinder block onto my ribs. I kept scrolling, heart racing, until I saw the photo. It wasn't anything explicit, but it didn't have to be. It was Melissa, sitting in a car, smiling in a way I hadn't seen her smile at me in months. And she sent it to Linda. I didn't know what to think. My brain couldn't process it. I put the phone back where I found it and sat there, staring at the wall. I must have looked like a ghost because when Melissa came back, she asked, "What's wrong?" I looked at her and said the words I never thought I'd have to say. "Who's Linda?" She froze. I swear, it was like she stopped breathing. For a second, I thought I'd imagined the messages. But her face told me everything. "What are you talking about?" she said too quickly. I didn't play dumb. "I saw your phone, Melissa. I saw the messages." "Who's Linda?" She stared at me, her expression shifting from shock to anger in a split second. "You went through my phone? That's what you care about? Not the fact you're texting someone else?" Melissa rolled her eyes, like I was the problem. "You're being paranoid." "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," I snapped. "You're sending photos and hearts to someone named Linda. Who is it?" That's when she said it, calm as anything. "It's your fault I had to look elsewhere." I stared at her, completely floored. My brain stopped working. "What?" I finally managed to say. Melissa folded her arms and looked at me, like she was scolding a child. "You haven't been there for me, Adam. Not really. You've been so caught up in work and your games that you don't even see me anymore." I didn't want this, but I needed someone who actually paid attention to me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you cheated on me? That's how you fix this? She didn't even flinch. You wouldn't understand. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to demand answers. But instead, I just sat there, stunned, while my wife looked at me like I was the problem. And then she dropped the second bombshell. Linda isn't who you think. What do you mean? I asked, my voice cracking. Melissa looked me dead in the eyes and said, it's someone you know, someone close. After Melissa said, Linda isn't who you think, I couldn't even breathe. My mind went blank, like someone pulled the plug. Who is it then? I asked, my voice barely coming out. Melissa didn't answer. She just stood there with this cold, tired expression, like she was already over the conversation. You'll figure it out, she muttered, grabbing her phone and walking upstairs like nothing happened. I sat on the couch for hours, staring, thinking. My brain replayed every moment from the last few months, looking for clues I'd missed. Someone close to me? Who could it be? The next morning, Melissa acted like nothing happened. She got up, made coffee, and scrolled through her phone like we hadn't just had the most life-destroying conversation the night before. I couldn't take it. I needed answers. I waited for her to leave for work before grabbing my laptop. I couldn't explain it, but I knew the texts were a cover-up. Melissa wasn't dumb. She wanted me to think it was a woman, like she hoped I wouldn't dig too deep. But she underestimated how desperate I was. I knew one thing. The text had mentioned a specific spot. Same place for lunch? I remembered the message clear as day. There's this little cafe near Melissa's office. She used to bring home pastries from there sometimes. It was worth a shot. I drove to the cafe around lunchtime, parked across the street, and waited. My heart was pounding. I felt crazy, like I was some stalker. But when your marriage is crumbling, you'll do anything to figure out why. Sure enough, Melissa walked in at 12:15, all dressed up in heels and her meeting outfit. She didn't look like someone grabbing lunch alone. A few minutes later, my best friend Mike walked in behind her. I swear to God, I thought I was hallucinating. Mike? Mike and Melissa? No way. I sat there, frozen in my car, watching as they sat at a table in the back corner. Melissa leaned in close. Mike smiled. He reached across the table and touched her hand. And just like that, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. It wasn't Linda. It was Mike. I don't remember driving to Mike's place. All I know is that 1 second, I was in my car, and the next, I was pounding on his door like a madman. He answered, all casual, like he didn't just blow up my life. Adam? What's up, man? What's up? I yelled. What the hell are you doing with my wife? Mike's face fell. He knew. He didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. Listen, man, you don't understand. No. I cut him off. I understand just fine. You're sleeping with Melissa. Mike stepped back like I'd punched him. It's not what you think. Don't give me that crap. I was shaking with anger. How long, Mike? How long has this been going on? He wouldn't look at me. A few months, he mumbled. Months? My voice cracked. You're my best friend. You've known Melissa for years. How could you? Mike finally looked up, and I'll never forget what he said next. Because she came to me, man. She said she was lonely, that you didn't care about her anymore. I laughed bitterly. So that makes it okay? You just decided to blow up my marriage because she said something? What about me? What about loyalty? Mike didn't have an answer. He just stood there, like some sad, pathetic loser who didn't know what to say. You're dead to me, I spat, turning to leave. But before I walked out, he called after me. She's not telling you everything, Adam. I froze. What the hell does that mean? Mike sighed. Melissa's playing you. I don't think I'm the only one, man. I drove home with my heart in my throat. Melissa wasn't just cheating. She was lying. And if Mike wasn't the only one, then who else was there? When I got home, Melissa was already there. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. You and Mike? I asked. My voice was shaking. She looked up, calm as ever. Figured it out, huh? Her lack of guilt made me sick. Why, Melissa? Why him? She shrugged. Because he was there. He listened. I stared at her, disgusted. And that makes it okay? You betrayed me. He betrayed me. She rolled her eyes. Spare me the speech, Adam. You were never there for me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So it's my fault you're a cheater? You pushed me to it, she shot back, standing up. I needed something more than a husband who comes home and zones out on his laptop every night. I couldn't take it anymore. How many others, Melissa? Her face twitched, just for a second. Then she smirked. Does it matter? I swear, I saw red. I turned around and stormed out of the house because if I stayed, I don't know what I would have done. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Melissa's words haunted me. Does it matter? She said it like she'd given up on hiding the truth, like the whole thing was some joke I wasn't in on. Mike was bad enough, but now I had this gnawing feeling that he wasn't the only one. Call it intuition, paranoia, whatever. I just knew she was hiding something bigger. The next morning, I made up my mind. I was going to find out the whole truth, no matter how ugly it was. I started with her phone bill. Yeah, it's a cliché move, but I didn't care. I logged into our account and went through every number she'd been texting and calling. Most were familiar. Her mom, friends, coworkers. But one number stood out. It appeared everywhere. Late nights, early mornings, random times in the afternoon. It wasn't Mike's number. I checked. I copied it down and decided to do some digging. A quick reverse lookup online gave me a name I didn't recognize, Carl H. At first, I thought it was nothing, just another coworker. But something told me to dig deeper. I searched his name on LinkedIn. That's when I found him. Carl Harper, Melissa's boss. My stomach dropped. Carl wasn't some random guy. He was the married, middle-aged head of Melissa's department. The guy she'd spent years telling me was a perfectionist jerk. At this point, I didn't want to believe it. Mike was one thing, but her boss? No way. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. I started paying closer attention to Melissa's schedule. She'd always told me she was working late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I decided to test it. The next Tuesday, I pretended to head to the gym after work. Instead, I parked across the street from her office building. I felt crazy sitting there, watching like a private detective, but I didn't care. Sure enough, at 7:30 p.m., Melissa walked out. She wasn't alone. Carl was with her. They stood by his car in the parking lot, talking quietly. Then Carl reached out and tucked her hair behind her ear, just like Jake did in every cheesy romance movie. Melissa laughed, and a second later, Carl leaned in and kissed her. I froze. I'd suspected it, but seeing it with my own eyes, it felt like a punch to the gut. My wife, my boss. They kissed for a long time before getting into his car and driving off. I didn't follow them. I couldn't. I just sat there, staring at the empty parking lot, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard they hurt. When I got home that night, Melissa was already there. She was curled up on the couch, watching some reality show like nothing happened. I stood there for a second, staring at her, trying to figure out what to say. Busy day? I asked, my voice tight. She didn't even look up. Yeah, you know how Tuesdays are. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, I know how Tuesdays are, Melissa. She glanced up, confused. What's that supposed to mean? I couldn't hold it in anymore. I saw you. Her face froze. What? I saw you tonight. With Carl. The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Mike wasn't enough, huh? I snapped. Now you're screwing your boss too? Melissa stood up, her hands shaking. Adam, I can explain. Explain what? I shouted. That you're cheating on me with multiple people? That you've been lying to me for months? It's not what you think, she yelled back, tears streaming down her face. Not what I think. I saw you kissing him, Melissa. I saw it with my own eyes. She crumbled. She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm so sorry. Her sobbing didn't move me. I stood there, staring at the woman I thought I knew, wondering how everything had come to this. Eventually, Melissa looked up, her face red and tear-streaked. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Then why? I demanded. Why did you do it? Mike, Carl, how many others, Melissa? Why? She looked at me with this broken expression, like she was searching for the right words. Because I felt alone, she whispered. Because I didn't think you loved me anymore. Her words hit me like a brick wall. What are you talking about? I said, I've always loved you. She shook her head. You don't get it. You stopped showing me, Adam. You come home, you go to the gym, you sit on your laptop. You barely look at me anymore. I felt invisible. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So your solution was to cheat on me? Twice. That's how you fix a marriage. Melissa wiped her face and looked away. I didn't plan it. Mike happened because I was lonely. And Carl made me feel important. Like I mattered again. Her words disgusted me. She sat there, blaming me for her choices, as if I'd forced her into bed with other men. You're pathetic, I said quietly. She looked at me, stunned. Adam. No, I cut her off. You don't get to play the victim here. You could have talked to me. You could have tried to fix this. Instead, you decided to destroy everything we built because you felt invisible. Melissa didn't say anything. She just sat there, crying, while I walked upstairs and grabbed my keys. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I couldn't look at Melissa without feeling like I was staring at a stranger, someone who had burned my life to the ground and didn't even seem sorry for it. She stayed in the house, mostly in the spare room, trying to give me space. But every time I heard her moving around, every time I saw her sitting on the couch, acting like the victim, I felt sick. This wasn't my fault. She did this. The anger inside me needed an outlet, and I knew exactly where to go. 2 days after I caught Melissa, I decided to confront Carl. I didn't care about consequences anymore. I wasn't going to let him get away with destroying my marriage while pretending to be some respectable boss. Carl had no idea what was coming. I showed up at his office building late in the afternoon, just before closing. I didn't call. I didn't check in with reception. I stormed straight to his office like a man on a mission. The secretary barely had time to stammer, "Sir, you can't," before I pushed open his door. Carl was sitting at his desk, cool as anything, tapping away at his laptop. When he looked up and saw me, his face went pale. "Adam," he said, clearing his throat, "what are you doing here?" "You know why I'm here," I said, slamming the door behind me. Carl's expression flickered. Guilt, panic, fear. He tried to play dumb. "I'm not sure what you're talking about." I stepped forward, towering over his desk. "You're sleeping with my wife, Carl. Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about." He looked like he wanted to deny it, but then he realized there was no point. "Listen, Adam, it's complicated." Complicated? I laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call screwing someone else's wife? Complicated?" Carl looked down at his desk, like a kid who'd been caught stealing. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way." "Yeah? How was it supposed to happen, Carl?" I leaned closer. "You're married. You have kids. You don't just accidentally cheat on your wife." He winced. "Look, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to hurt anyone." His apology didn't mean anything to me. "Does your wife know?" That shut him up. He stared at me, stunned. "No," he said quietly. "Well, maybe she should," I shot back. Carl's face turned red. "Adam, please. Don't do that. You'll ruin everything." "I'll ruin everything?" I snapped. "You already did that when you decided to blow up 2 marriages. You don't get to play the victim." I turned to leave, ready to walk out of that office and make a phone call to Carl's wife. But then he said something that stopped me in my tracks. "It's not all my fault, Adam. You should know. Melissa came on to me first." I froze. "What did you just say?" Carl shrugged, looking nervous. "It's true. She told me she wasn't happy at home, that you didn't care about her anymore. I was weak, okay? I let it happen, but she started it." I didn't say anything. I just stared at him. Carl was trying to save his own skin by throwing Melissa under the bus. I didn't know if it was true, but it didn't matter. They were both liars. When I got home that night, Melissa was in the kitchen, acting like nothing had happened. She looked up as I walked in, trying to read my expression. "Where were you?" she asked cautiously. "I talked to Carl," I said flatly. Her face went white. What? You heard me. I confronted him. Melissa tried to recover, but her voice was shaky. Why would you do that? Because I needed the truth, I snapped. And you sure as hell weren't going to give it to me. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, fidgeting with the corner of the counter like a guilty child. Did you go after him first? I demanded. Her head shot up, eyes wide. What? Carl said you came onto him first. That you told him I didn't care about you. Is that true? Melissa's mouth opened and closed like she didn't know what to say. Finally, she whispered, "It's not that simple." "So it is true," I said bitterly. She didn't deny it. That was it for me. I was done. "Pack your things," I said, my voice cold. Melissa stared at me, stunned. "What?" "You heard me. We're done, Melissa. You've been cheating on me for months. You've been lying to my face, and now you want to blame me for it? I don't care what excuses you have. I'm done." Tears filled her eyes. "Adam, please." "No," I cut her off. "You don't get to cry. You don't get to play the victim here. You destroyed this marriage, not me." She tried to argue, to beg, to explain. I didn't care. I walked out of the house, leaving her sobbing in the kitchen. I didn't look back. The next day, I called Carl's wife. Yeah, I did it. I didn't even feel bad. She deserved to know the truth. When I told her, there was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Then she whispered, "Thank you for telling me. It wasn't much, but it was enough." Later that week, I started the paperwork for divorce. I moved into a small apartment across town and cut off all contact with Melissa. She tried to call, to text, to beg for another chance, but I ignored her. Mike tried to reach out too. He sent me this long, pathetic message about how sorry he was and how he'd messed up. I blocked him. After I walked away, I didn't look back. I felt numb, like I was moving through the world on autopilot. My marriage was over. My best friend had betrayed me. And Melissa, well, she was finally about to face the consequences of her choices. I spent the first few weeks in survival mode. I kept my head down at work, buried myself in the gym, and avoided all the places that reminded me of her. The silence in my apartment felt strange at first, but after a while, it became my comfort. No more arguments. No more lies. Just me, rebuilding from the ground up. But while I was starting to heal, Melissa's life was falling apart. It all started with Carl's wife. After I told her about the affair, word spread fast. Carl didn't just have a family. He was a respected figure in his company and the local community. His wife filed for divorce almost immediately, taking their kids and leaving him with nothing but a ruined reputation. And Melissa? Well, Carl's wife didn't hold back. She blasted the affair on social media. She called Melissa out by name, labeling her a homewrecker for everyone to see. It was brutal. Melissa's office caught wind of everything soon after. Sleeping with the boss? Yeah, that doesn't fly in corporate America. HR launched an investigation. Within days, Melissa was fired. One of her coworkers, someone I barely knew, reached out to me. "Hey man," he said over the phone. "I don't know if you heard, but Melissa's a mess. She's been packing up her desk all morning." I didn't respond. I didn't feel good about it, but I wasn't sad either. She made her choices, and now she had to deal with the fallout. As for Mike, he didn't get off easy either. His girlfriend dumped him when she found out what he'd done. Word spread through our friend group like wildfire. Everyone turned their backs on him. Guys we'd known since college, people he'd been close to for years. One day, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Mike. "Adam, I know you don't owe me anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I messed up, man. I don't even know why I did it. You were my best friend, and I threw it all away. I hate myself for it. I hope someday you can forgive me." I stared at the message for a long time. Maybe part of me wanted to hear that apology. Maybe part of me even believed him. But forgiveness? I wasn't there yet. Maybe I never would be. I didn't reply. About a month after I filed for divorce, Melissa reached out. She called me late at night, her voice small and broken. "Adam," she said, "I don't know where else to turn. I lost my job. Carl won't even talk to me anymore. Everyone's turned on me. I don't know what to do." I let her talk. I didn't say much. "I messed up," she continued. I see that now. I ruined everything, and I can't take it back. But Adam, please don't hate me forever. I just want to fix this. For the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel anything for her at all. I don't hate you, Melissa, I said, but we're done. I hope you figure yourself out, but that's not my problem anymore. She started crying. I hung up. It's been 6 months now. The divorce was finalized last week. Melissa didn't contest anything. She just signed the papers and let me go. For the first time in a long time, I feel free. I've started focusing on myself again, reconnecting with old friends, picking up hobbies I used to love. I've started traveling, something Melissa and I always talked about but never did. I went on my first solo trip a few weeks ago, and I can't remember the last time I felt so at peace. It hasn't been easy, though. Some days, the bitterness creeps back in. I think about Mike, about Melissa, about how quickly people you trust can turn on you. But I'm learning to let it go. They're not a part of my life anymore, and that's for the best. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that people will justify anything to themselves. Melissa blamed me for her cheating, as if her decisions were somehow my fault. Mike blamed his weakness instead of owning his betrayal. But at the end of the day, we're all responsible for our own choices. I've stopped blaming myself. I wasn't a perfect husband, but I didn't deserve what happened. Nobody does. To anyone reading this who's been through something similar, it gets better. The lies, the betrayal, they don't define you. You're stronger than you think. And as for Melissa, wherever she is now, I hope she's figuring out how to take responsibility for her own life. I've already moved on.